last one about functions. And in this particular one, we look at a function that we've written ourselves that has parameters to it. So if you look, the code up to here is the same code that we just saw in the function screencast earlier. But now, instead of these parentheses in our flash function that we wrote being empty parentheses, there are two arguments, there are two parameters in those parentheses. There's a 20, and then we put a comma, and we also put one of our variables, delay period, which we know right now is 250. When we now go down here to define the flash function, you'll see that instead of these parentheses being empty, many of you always say, well, what goes in the parentheses? Here's a case of when you would use something between the parentheses. So we have two arguments there. We're basically saying that when you call the flash function, there should be two arguments that you're telling us, because they will be referenced in the program somewhere. So in this case, I'm saying that the first argument, the first parameter, is going to be whatever is the first thing after the parentheses. That is going to be a variable, a number variable, it's an integer, a number that I am calling num flashes, or number of flashes. The second thing after the parentheses is going to be another variable that I am going to call D, and in this case it has to do with a delay, so I've named it D. And then you'll see I have my my flash function, and it's a little different. It's similar but a little different than the last screencast. I have my for command, and I set my little variable I as usual, but in this time, instead of saying to keep looping this over and over until I is no longer less than 20, and add 1 to I each time, this time we're saying keep going until I is no longer less than the number of num flashes, whatever this variable is. So here I have set it to 20. I could set this to 2000, and my program would automatically adapt now to say keep going until I is no longer less than 2000. And then it's going to do that same old thing that we've been doing this whole time, turn the LED on. It's going to delay for this variable here, so that means whatever was in this second spot between the parentheses, and we put another variable there, so we have to go back up to the top here to see that. That is 250. So it's going to delay for 250 milliseconds, turn the LED off, and then delay for another 250 milliseconds. Add 1 to our integer, our I integer, check to see if that number is still less than the variable here, which is 2000. If it is, it's going to go through the whole process again, and then eventually it will, when it can no longer say that this is all true, it will go and delay for 3000 milliseconds, or 3 seconds. This is also a good time to point out a bit about global and local variables. Global variables are typically defined at the top of our program, so our LED pin being saying that it's in the 13-pin slot in our Arduino board, that's a global variable. This delay period is also a global variable, and the sort of special thing about global variables is that I can reference them anywhere within my program, and it will know what those are. Local variables, like the ones I define here in my flash function or in my for command, can only be referenced in those contexts. So here I say there is a variable called D and a variable called num flashes. I could not reference num flashes somewhere in my main void loop function or in any other function that I make, unless I am making a whole different variable. So they're only within their the, the the smaller functions that they occupy. That's it for now. Hope you're starting to get the hang of functions.